Hello, myself Sunil R Nair. Basically, here basically we are talking about the topic basically that is the education basically sector, and then education sector basically one person literally asked one question basically. In education sector basically you had done the mathematics, you had done the English, you had done the economics, you had done the accountancy, and the CA basically people say that basically we have done this that basically each and every book basically. Then one person basically literally asked the question basically. This basically is very actually for this question basically one project also basically can be created like this basically he told that and this project basically 100% there might be exist but only nuclear company might be having this data basically. For example, he told that basically. How basically one person mood basically are set it. For example, one person told that basically he's working. He told that basically he's working. Then basically suddenly basically he told that basically he gets some romantic mood basically. Then basically he got that some angry mood basically. Then he got that some sports play basically mood. He basically started running like this basically mood he got. Then he told that basically how basically this basically gets connect. How basically this gets connect basically. That question basically he asked. This question basically he asked. Then he told that basically uh, the energy basically that whatever basically you have got from the set of group basically. For example, you had eaten some prasad basically. So that prasad basically generates each and every energy basically in this world basically. Assume that there are basically 100 types of basically 100 types of situation basically where human can basically reach. It might be suicide also, it might be romantic mood also, it might be some other mood basically. So each and every mood like this basically 1,000 mood basically are created. So he told that basically whatever basically energy you have in your body. For example, you eaten some pani puri, you eaten basically some fruits, you eaten basically some makai ki roti, you eaten basically some roti, you eaten basically some prasad basically that is the god prasad. Then basically he told that basically you eaten some water basically, you drink water, you basically had some juice. Like this basically each and every basically item basically you have that basically generates each and every moods. For example, you eaten basically one apple, so that basically contains, for example, there are 1,000 types of mood basically created in this world basically. So that mood basically entire apple basically is having. Then he told that basically if anybody wants to control his body basically from apple basically, then he can basically control. Then he told that basically, for example, this person basically is supposed to do suicide basically. Then basically we can create that mode basically from the apple energy only. One person told that basically we can we create the romantic mood of that particular person? Then he told that basically yes, we can create it. And then basically he told that basically can we create the educational level mood basically? Then he told that basically yeah, that also basically Apple can create. So what if, for example, in your entire life basically till now basically means 1049 basically till 1049 basically you had around 3,50,000 apples in the entire life basically till now basically. My age is basically 43. So till 43 age basically, till 43 age basically, there are basically 15,695 days. So in this basically, you had around assume that some 3,50,000 apple. So he basically told that basically your body is going to generate that energy basically, and then basically your body is controlled by that apple energy basically. Then he told that basically you assume that you had basically around 15,000 bananas. So banana energy basically is going to control basically your body parts. Each and every activity basically they are going to control. For example, you are doing some educational part basically, educational thing basically you are doing. For example, you are doing some MBA or basically you are doing some MCA or you are doing some other degree basically. for basically you are working somewhere, and basically then basically you are working for that project basically. So each and every parts basically one banana and one apple basically can control. It might possible that all energy basically comes at the same time basically, that is also possible. So they each and everything basically have got the permission basically from the basically author, nuclear power company basically, that you can basically control his body parts. You can basically control his body parts. That means basically if you are basically doing some educational basically level, then basically he told that basically yeah basically you can basically do the education basically like this. Basically he told that basically yeah basically we can do the education part basically. So like this each and every mood basically in this world basically you can control from that basically. Then the one of the world band person basically told that basically uh, uh, he told that basically then basically how many basically city basically are getting accessed in the same time basically, and how basically the power supply or basically groups are basically controlling this each and everything basically. Then he told that basically that's this is also basically you can say the one of the global warming basically. Here also basically one few for 2 or 3% basically global warming basically comes. So like this basically one person told that basically how many basically global warming basically till now basically you have discussed. One is basically the education, that is 20 percentage. Then basically he told that basically foods. Basically here basically we will take all foods basically. So 10 percentage. Then basically he told that basically uh, then he basically told that education basically from 100% basically education basically contains around 20 percentage. They basically generate 20 percentage error basically, that is the global warming. Then he told that basically foods basically which you eat, that basically generates 10 percentage. That's why basically few people says that eat like a medicine basically. That might be the reason basically that basically is told by one of the businessmen basically, because he might be knowing basically how the things basically are created. That basically we can't say his name basically because this type of thing basically is very critical basically to say also basically. So then basically then basically your mood basically which is getting controlled. For example, when you basically going to romance mode, when you are basically going to educational mode basically, when you are working mode. So assume that in per day basically you are going into around for example you are going to sports mode basically. Sports mode you can say you are walking basically. So like this basically around assume that around 16 to 17 mood basically you generates. 15 to 16 moods basically you generate in your 24 hours basically. So in 24 hours basically you get around, you basically generate around 10 percentage of global warming data basically in this world basically. For example, there are basically more than 800 crore people basically. So from 100% basically you are generating 10 percentage from this mood basically, from this changing mood basically. That's why basically few people says that basically the company system has created. That's why basically the company system has created. So that basically you will be busy for 8 hour, 10 hours basically. So that basically is one mood basically. That is basically one mood basically. It is not going to generate too much of basically the global warming. Too much of global warming, it's not going to generate. Then basically he told that basically morning walk up basically. If he's not a diabetic person, then basically he will not do the jogging. So that basically is global warming has basically over. Then basically he eats the breakfast basically. That basically if he eats less or basically controlling food, then basically global warming will be little bit less. Like this basically he travels the from the vehicle basically, that time basically he is having the sports energy. So as much traveling basically that much sports energy is going to generate. Then basically it's going to into working basically. This basically, literally, basically, many people, lots of people basically can't able to understand this. Basically, what actually I am telling you. Then basically, um, when he is doing the working, basically that time basically, if he is doing the working for 8 to 9 hours or 10 hours, basically, or 12 hours, basically, then basically is generating working energy. Like this, basically, the people basically in mood basically they generates 10% of energy basically. 10% of energy basically in mood changing basically. So this basically you can say that in education basically, if he connects to education, that is one mood basically. So this basically gets divided basically in this both basically. So this basically number basically um, uh, uh, basically will keeps on dividing basically. You can say sometimes that less, sometimes this less, because for example he is not doing in the education basically for some day basically. Then basically here the education basically data is going to come less, will come less basically. Rest of activity is going to generate more. So like this basically, this is also basically one thing basically. Then he basically told that uh, then he told that basically uh, there are basically many categories of people right in this world basically. Then he told that yes, basically you are correct. There are many types of categories of people basically in this world. Then he told that basically like sports person, education person, Bollywood person, and Hollywood person, right? Then he told that yes, basically you are correct. So basically, he told that basically like this basically the which category person basically generates more human clone sorry the global warming basically. Then basically he told that basically that need to do research basically. For that basically there is no project also basically in the available in this market basically. So for which industry basically the more basically the more the global warming basically generate. Whatever activity you do basically. For example, you are just sleeping basically. For sleeping basically, you are just sleeping basically. If you are sleeping basically, then 15 percentage basically global warming basically get increased basically. 15 percentage basically. If you are sleeping more than particular hour basically. For example, one person told that basically I just sleep for 6 to 7 hours. So that is a normal hour basically. That is a normal hour basically. So here basically the percentage will not be 15 to 16 basically. But if we are sleeping more than that basically, for example 12 hours, 13 hours, 14, 15 hours, then basically it is going to generate 15 percentage of energy of the global warming. So this basically are very less. Why? Because nobody basically sleeps up to this time basically. Nowadays basically. Nowadays that also very busy life is there, and that also basically the tough life basically you can say. To earn money also basically how much is difficult basically. For example, I am the example basically. 6 times basically Mumbai visited, but not able to get the job basically. Not able to get the job basically. So you can just imagine basically that life basically how it's tough basically. Even basically having this much of knowledge basically. Then one person told that basically there might be your some personal enemy basically with some group basically, or basically it might possible that cyber group basically might have connected to you, and they basically might have blocked your biodata or basically some resume basically, or basically it might be possible that some recruitment company basically might have blocked your resume. That is also possible. Then one of the person told that basically recruitment every agency basically are controlled by the set of groups basically. That is basically there basically they basically don't have any control basically. They basically gets the money from the set of companies. So companies are basically controlling. They are getting the money from the news agency. Then news agencies are controlling them. if they are getting some money from the certain industry level basically, then industry basically are controlling that people. So their control basically is not there basically. So for example, Naukri.com person, one person told that basically his resume basically blocked by the Naukri.com person. That means then basically it might be possible their personal enemy is not there basically. That might be possible that other sector basically like sports people basically, they are basically controlling the Naukri.com basically, because they basically gives basically 50 percentage of data to the Naukri.com, because lots of basically company they have contacts like this basically might possible that sports group might have told that basically block his resume or block his number basically. That might possible. Or basically it might possible that some of the software company might have told that basically you had done something wrong to that company. So they, that basically might be possible. Or basically some more educated person basically saw your this video basically, and they basically he basically thought that basically this person basically might become might basically reach up to my level designation. So might be possible that he might have blocked that. Anything basically is possible basically. Anything basically is possible basically. So anything basically is possible basically. So like this basically he told that basically more possibility if you want to find basically, then basically only the person basically who have blocked your resume, you have to go to that place and then basically they can only tell you basically why you have blocked my resume. Then basically they say that basically for this many time your resume has blocked. Then basically as per the data, and basically if they are telling that basically then literally basically they will spend the crores of rupees basically for that only, more than 100 crore, 200 crore. But they will say that basically we have blocked. That means in 100 crore, basically, if they give some percentage of money if in the job only, then basically there is no meaning of block spending the hundreds of crore. But this also basically has become into business basically. This has converted into business basically. So there are lots of people basically who are earning from on the base of this basically, by blocking resume, by keeping track of that particular computer basically what he is doing, how is when basically is accessing the Naukri.com, when he is accessing the Shine.com. Like this basically the people who have done the block basically, they basically keeps on calling them basically. He's basically applied to any job basically, then will let us know basically if he has applied to any of the company. Then basically they basically connect to the companies. Like this basically things are basically there. Like this basically things are basically there. So one person told that basically the sleeping basically generates 15 percentage of data basically, if he's sleeping more than 15 hours basically. Then basically he told that basically uh, then basically what is the basically thing basically, then basically he told that do you know basically Sunil, if you are basically thinking uh, if you are thinking some ideas basically, for example he told that basically ideas basically you can say that one person basically given you some problem basically is he told that basically that is I will take my example. I basically told one person basically I am not getting the job. So what might be the reason basically? What might be the problem basically? Then he basically started thinking. Then he told that basically this might be the problem, this might be the problem. He basically literally thinks from his brain basically. So one of the person basically told that basically computer industry came into this world basically. Computer industry basically came into this world basically. The reason basically is you basically are not supposed to think too much basically, because whenever you are thinking your body basically, that time the energies basically are generating. But without thinking basically you can't able to stay in this life basically. Then basically your mind basically go into coma basically. If you don't think basically, then your mind go into coma basically, you get the diabetes disease, because the people basically who don't think basically, their basically body goes into the diabetes basically. If they don't think basically, if we basically say that basically he is not thinking since, for example, he is not working since many time basically, that means he has stopped his thinking basically. So basically he will 100% go to the diabetes disease basically. Sometimes basically it might possible that he will reach to the coma basically, right? Sometimes basically he will reach to the coma disease also basically. That is also possible basically. So he told that basically so this is also basically some percentage basically you can say. Then he told that basically is there anything basically, then he told that basically if you think any ideas basically, just now example I have given, so this was a simple example. Like this basically many things are, many complicated ideas are also there, but that will generate 5%. Then he told that basically, you told that the education basically generate 20%, but in education basically you are not doing the education from the many sectors basically, from many sectors basically you are not doing the education, many sector basically you are not doing the education basically. Then he told that basically you are doing education of just MBA basically, just of MBA basically. So in idea basically, that's why basically it's more percentage basically. If you are doing the education, that is basically more. That is basically the 20%. If you, because in education basically you do only one study basically, that is the MBA. So that is only basically the attraction going to happen. Then in idea basically you are not thinking to only MBA. You are basically going to think many things basically, so that basically will never get at too much of human generation, so global warming. Reason is basically you are attracting to one idea, that means one sector, then basically immediately you change the basically the data basically. So like this basically you are changing the data frequently basically. That's why the global warming generate basically less basically. That's why people choose that cooling system basically has created in the software industry. Do you know basically? Then into that basically, yeah, basically there are multiple servers basically. If that Amazon server is the best example, Amazon server is the best example. They basically say that if same time basically 1,000 or 2,000 basically people are connecting to the Amazon server, then basically they divide the 1,000 users to many servers basically. So that is basically the pooling server. Na? So Amazon basically told that basically we have created our entire Amazon basically entire computer system also basically according to the personal things basically, whatever things basically you do na, that basically we have converted, we basically used that only basically to create the entire software industry basically. This basically was told by one of the person basically, that basically I am not telling that Amazon or basically some person has told, but this is basically told by one of the person, which person basically is the businessman basically, so we can't take his name basically. So like this was actually told by the one of the person basically, that whatever, for example networking you have created, right? So that is also basically created from the personal stuff basically. Personal stuff basically. Same way each and every activities I things basically are created, that is basically created from your personal activities. Each and every software industry basically created. Then basically it was that ideas basically are different sectors idea basically is connecting. That's why basically it's not going to uh, things basically it's not going to connect too much basically to your body basically, because you are at that second only basically it leaves your body basically. So here basically he told that basically the, then basically it comes one is basically the, then basically it comes is the software industry basically, that is the, that basically need to calculate, just a minute I will just calculate this, how much basically it is coming. The next is basically the software industry basically. That software industry basically comes to computer industry and the networking industry also. This also basically is equivalent to the education industry like this basically. This is also basically connected with the education, same basically as education industry basically is basically generating the global warming. So this is also basically very dangerous. So this basically also basically you can say that this also basically converted into sorry, it's 20 percentage basically. So this basically also basically the software industry also basically have to think something basically. So for that basically only server people basically have done the error. So that basically they need to do the checking basically how, because server basically is connected with the physical locations, and they basically say that we have taken the idea from the education industry basically. So that basically there basically they actually failed basically. They were actually not supposed. They basically thought that basically education sector basically have done correctly. That's why basically few people says that never copy the thing basically. Never basically copy the idea. So like this basically they taken the idea from the education industry, and education industry basically 20 percentage global warming is already there. So software industry basically also jumped into it that, and they also basically generated 20% because same idea basically they have taken. Same idea basically they have taken. So like this basically if they are, if basically one software industry basically is trying to solve the error basically, uh, then basically it will be difficult, or basically who will be doing the first, that is the main thing basically. Because error is there basically, global warming error basically is 100% there basically. If you want to check, then basically you can check with the nuclear power company basically. So here one person basically told that basically global warming basically here basically the global warming is with the software industry also, networking industry also basically, and the hardware industry also, because they have taken the ideas from the education industry, you know. If you copies basically anything, then basically same thing you are doing, what same mistake basically you are doing, which he has basically done, which basically the education industry has done the mistake, same mistake you are doing, na? Same mistake basically you are doing. Then basically first basically one person told that basically which error basically we solved first basically, because he told that basically you have to solve the education industry only first, because it might possible that you software industry basically might have taken few data from this education industry, because computer industry, software industry people say that basically they are very lazy basically. So laziness basically started here from here basically. Laziness basically started from here basically. That was the few data basically they have taken from the education industry. So you can't basically start first basically, so only education industry basically have to start first basically. It might possible that somebody might basically might be knowing that basically it might possible that education industry basically in future basically it might basically track that the education industry basically is generating some global warming. This word basically just now basically it has came the that time basically it might be, they basically might be telling that some error basically if education sector is having basically, then basically it will be difficult here basically. Then it might possible they basically say that basically you completely do thing, we will basically just do after your thing basically is done. According to that situation basically it might possible that that situation might occur today basically. That's why basically one of the software industry might have basically taken the education industry data also, because if they have taken the education industry data, so 100% if the in future basically big is going to come, so this is big basically going to happen, that is the global warming. So this big has basically happened. Then he told that basically yeah, big to already happened. So basically education industry is going to do first. So that person basically was smart or basically don't know basically, but that person was basically 100% knowing that the global warming error basically will occur basically. So basically he might be some from one of the software, one of the server creation basically company. He might be Compaq, he might be Dell, he might be some any person basically. He can be anybody basically. So this also basically need to diagnose basically which person basically, because nowadays basically you have the software industry basically have the software basically, right? From where this idea basically came, that is basically very easy for nowadays basically. But that time basically when the computer was not created, that time basically it was very difficult, but satellite group basically might have tracked that basically, that this person basically has given the idea. So that person basically 100% be, and with they, he will be exist also basically. I'm also basically 100% telling. He will be 100% exist in this world also, because he basically have tracked this. He basically has tracked this basically. So whenever basically the software industry basically has connected to the education industry, no, that time basically the education industry, few people might have tracked that basically this group basically are contacting to us. That means basically some problem basically might occur in future basically in the education industry. That's why basically they are connecting to us, because each and every education industry which is directly connecting to the software industry, no, basically. For example, each and every software basically which you are creating, for example, payroll system, that is the education part, no, basically. That is the part of education. CRM system basically, that is the customer relationship management basically. That is also part of the education. So that's why basically they told that basically somebody has tracked the thing basically. That's why basically, that's why basically, that's why basically he has used the education data also. So this was basically the very intelligent, or basically what that time basically it was the perfect intelligent basically decision, but that was basically the escape decision also, you can say. That time basically if he might have told this to education industry, then basically the things basically totally might have changed. That's why basically one person basically tells that basically if you get any idea in your brain basically, immediately write to any of the book, or basically write to any of the forum basically, because it might possible that that idea basically can track by someone, any person basically. For example, this just now basically I have told that the education basically in the industry is 20% going to generate the is generating the 20% of global warming. So, so like this basically, things are basically also there basically. So any idea basically gets immediately basically write in the paper basically, and basically you can basically have the forum is there basically, the video recordings are basically there. So immediately basically share this data basically, because it might possible that somebody might basically doing that software basically, immediately he gets this idea, and he basically might change the idea, because he might be thinking, he might basically get that basically this roadmap basically which we are going, that might be wrong way. So like this basically one person told that basically, that's why we have created lots of ideas basically into the environment basically. For example, one person told that basically one person is basically solving the problem, right? And that problem basically which he is solving, that basically is connected to some certain level of ideas basically, 100%. Because for one problem basically there might be possible that around 15 to 16 basically idea will be there in the environment basically. So which idea basically is good basically, that basically who takes the decision. One person told that basically in previous lecture basically you told that basically supply and demand basically, that basically is also there basically. So that is also basically one, but basically the so like this basically that is also basically there. Then basically he told that basically he connects with the idea basically, that time basically it should connect to the proper ideas. That basically who takes the decision basically, that basically nuclear company basically takes the decision. So how basically the proper ideas basically are decided, that basically nuclear power company only basically knows. So one problem basically which we are solving, that basic problem solution basically are 15 to 20 basically ideas basically are there already in the market basically. So like this basically, he told that basically 20 percentage basically problem basically are occurring from the software industry basically, because they have copied na basically, they have literally copied also. And the main thing basically here is each and every object basically also created, like copy paste is there, copy paste is there na basically. So this is basically they have told that basically we have done some copy paste basically, that also basically they are literally telling each and every basically features basically telling basically that we have created an entire our software industry like this only basically. So copy paste basically means what basically? That is the laziness basically. But laziness basically one person told that basically how basically you can do same work basically, yeah. Then he told that you are correct basically. But if he is doing the mistake basically, that means you are also doing the same mistake. Na? That is the basically main thing. Na? Basically, if you are doing the mistake basically, sorry, he has done the mistake. That means you are also basically done the mistake. That means that is also basically correct. Yeah, basically. That is also basically correct. But the time is going to waste, na, basically. Time is going to waste. Then one person told that basically, do you have any data of 100% work basically which is done? For example, this error basically solving, this chartered accountant person basically was solving the error basically. So do you have the 100% authentication authenticated data basically that this will be 100% correct only? For that basically nuclear power companies that they are basically having 15 authenticated problem solved data basically. 15 authenticated problem solved data basically. So that is going to solve your problem basically. But what about the new thing basically which you are doing basically? They're basically, for example, software company have basically generated their software industry basically on the base of education sector. So software industry basically and computer industry and networking industry, that was new basically. They trusted the education industry, and that trust basically, literally basically they are the software industry also basically have to sit at home only. Na? Nowadays basically they are sitting at home basically. They are not doing the office basically. Like basically automate company basically is there. I mean Vadodara city, like this basically the TCS basically is there, like this basically the Rishabh software is there. These all people basically are working from home basically, because they might be knowing this problem basically, that is the education industry basically we have copied it. It might be knowing basically. Few people says that we are basically connected with the development team basically. Development means basically Oracle is created, so they were connected that time when Microsoft was creating that time basically they were connected, so they know each and every loop and fold basically, each and every error basically they know. So according to they basically are always ready basically. So they told that basically we are always ready. So they basically told that we basically can't give the suggestion to any big person basically. If you are giving suggestion to any big person basically, that would be wrong basically. But if you are giving the suggestion in the forums or in the Facebook or in the video basically, that is not going to hurt him basically. Why? Because you are not directly telling to him basically. If he want to take that idea, then basically he can take that. This is not going to hurt his ego also basically. That is not going to hurt his ego also. If you want to take this idea, then take it basically. But you have to verify each and everything basically when you are connecting to any ideas basically. And here basically the computer industry basically has done the mistake basically, that was copy pasting of the education data also. That is basically 100% taken basically. I am telling you. I have not seen any creation basically. I have not creation. I have basically not seen the when the SAP was creating. That time basically I have not seen the SAP creation basically. That is 1972 basically I'm talking. Sorry, 1942. In 1942 basically they have started the SAP creation. That time basically I have not get the birth also basically. But I can tell you 100% basically from the SAP creation basically. And basically, I have not worked with. I basically don't have experience in SAP also basically. I never seen the SAP software also basically. Then also, basically, I can give you 100% authority that SAP group basically has also taken the educational data basically, because entire software industry has taken the educational data, and this basically connects to C++, COBOL basically. They have started this basically. They have, and the few people says that .NET is basically created on the base of COBOL or basically Pascal basically, or basically C or C++ basically. If they basically have done this mistake now basically, that means the mistake is done by the .NET, Microsoft, each and every Oracle basically may also basically are taken the example of the C++, and few project basically of the Oracle basically is done in the Java basically. So they have each and every software sector basically has copied the thing basically. So this was the big mistake basically which was done basically, and this is already done basically. The things basically is already done, and then basically it will be going to create big issue. That is 100% basically going to create big issue, means very big issue. Because if the universe group basically will say that basically this type of global warming basically is generating 20 percentage global warming is generating from software industry, 20 percentage of global warming is generating from education industry, and when universe group will ask basically why you had done the 20 percentage mistake basically, then they will say that basically we have actually done the copy paste. Then basically they told that basically why you had done the copy paste. Why basically you have done the copy paste? If he is doing the mistake, then you are also doing the mistake, right? Then they basically told that basically to save the time basically. Now basically you have saved the time basically. Our entire Earth planet basically came into trouble due to you basically. That is the education and basically the software industry basically. Like this basically he told that basically. Then basically he told that basically the hard work basically person who do basically, for example, one person is doing some delivery, one person basically is doing some hard work, one person is doing that work, one person is doing this work. So when basically when he's do that tough work basically, that time basically his basically body generates uh, 10 percentage of global warming basically. So one person told that basically this is 10%. In future, basically it might increase. Then basically he told that basically it might possible basically, because education sector also basically was 10%. Then it had converted to 20%. So this basically can be stopped basically. Then basically there are basically other percentage also basically you can say like this uh, nuclear power company basically. Then he told that basically the nuclear power company basically they do the work that basically also generate the 5%. So this basically you can add in the idea parts basically, that basically they are also doing some idea level work only basically, because they are not basically doing some percentage some level of task basically. Their tasks are also basically always new basically. They don't have any books also basically. They don't have any source basically from the thinking basically happens. They takes basically literally basically they takes data from here. Sometimes basically they have to generate mathematics data. So they take data from mathematics. Sometimes they have to generate English data. So they are taking ideas from English basically, data basically. Like this basically they are taking also data from the education and basically uh, other sectors basically. But this basically will not generate too much of data basically. Why? Because they are generating percent. For example, few 10 minutes basically they are connected with the education. Then after 10 minutes basically they connected to the software. Like this basically the global warming is not going to. In next topic basically we are going to see a little bit more about this one.